Hey, family, and welcome to the Critical Sense Making Sessions facilitated by yours truly, Revolutionary Rika. Today's episode is episode 36, and today's topic is foster care. Today's guest is Sharon Webster. She is a Bay Area native who is passionate about supporting youth, seniors, and disabled African Americans. Sharon, tell us a little bit more about who you are and choose one word to describe how you're showing up.
Okay, I'm Sharon Owens-Webster. I was raised in San Francisco. I love San Francisco. And today, how I'm showing up optimistic. I think that there's so much to be thankful for. And I pray that this will be beneficial to the listeners.
Well, thank you again for agreeing to come on the podcast. And we'll just get started with our icebreaker question. And so, what song represents your life right now and why?
I'm going to say no more drama.
Mhm.
And that's because, you know, I won't, we all go through things, but last year I lost my mama. And I know that in walking through this thing called grief, trying to get to the other side, that, you know, if I don't have unnecessary drama around there, the sky is the limit to what I can have. So I just, that's the song that would best represent me today.
All right, Mary J. Blige. Shout out to you, Mary J.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Drama. That's what's up. So I'm going to move us right into our first set of questions. And I would love for you to start by telling us a little bit about life growing up in San Francisco.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Alice Griffith, aka Double Rock, which was a small community. It was a village because I could go to my neighbors if I needed something in particularly like food, or if one of them wanted to reprimand me for doing something wrong, I would not get angry at them and call them out of their name. I would be like, please don't tell my mother. And most of the time they would tell me, I am going to tell your mother. So I feel like there were people who genuinely cared about your well being and didn't want you out there acting any kind of way. So growing up in Double Rock was also a blessing because we went outside, unlike this new millennium child. We got to play outside. So we had jacks, we had double dutch, Chinese jump rope, hide and seek. I ain't gonna get it. We had everything. You know what I'm saying? We had tag, we had punchinella. Look who's here. So we made up, our little dance steps. Look who's here, punchinella 48. So anyway, we had ways to keep ourselves busy without a TV, without an iPod, without any other thing. You could sit down and draw. You know what I'm saying? So we had lots of ways. Me and my brother used to play cards, tongue, steal a casino. We knew all these card games that I can't hardly remember to teach my I don't have any grandchildren, but my great nieces and nephews. But I just want to say it was great growing up in the city. I want to say the 60s through the 80s for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know a little bit about growing up in San Francisco. When you were younger, what did you like? What did you think? What did you think you were going to grow up to be?
I thought I was going to be an entertainer, mainly because every time my aunties and uncles came over, my mother either had me sing or dance for them or tell them something I learned in my Bible study. And also because when we went to church, you had to be on program. So I had to play my clarinet even when I really didn't know how to play it. When I was squeaking and making noises that didn't sound like the true sound that was supposed to come out. I had a chance to get up there and no one would make fun of you. So you didn't feel bad getting up there, whether your talent was, strong or you was just working on it, trying to get over the fear of standing up in front of people.
Mhm.
Um, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. An entertainer. I love that. So, thinking back on your childhood, what did you know or learn about foster care?
I really didn't know that much about foster care, but I do have a good friend to this day who entered foster care, and she was with a lady who went to my church, which was First Union. Well, I didn't really know what all of foster care meant. I just knew she wasn't with her mom, and this lady was like an auntie standing in the gap.
Mhm, mhm.
And I didn't. Nobody really talked about foster care.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Okay.
I don't think I really knew like the depth of foster care and what it meant for a kid to be moved out of their home into someone else's.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to move us into the second set of questions. And so I would love for you, in your own words, to tell us what the foster care system is.
Well, the foster care system is a system that attempts to manage children who are not safe in their own homes due to neglect or abuse. When they pull the children from the home, they are mandated to provide them with a safe, nurturing home. And that could be a ward, that could be a foster or group home, or that could be a private home, which is normally through foster family agencies that are considered like a private home. But all homes are private when they have people who have been certified or licensed to get that certificate to say that they are have been equipped to take care and provide services to the children.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that. And so, how did you come to work in foster care?
The way I came to work in foster care is that I got a stipend to go into child protective services in any county in the Northern Bay Area. So I can't remember all the counties we have, but from Solano all the way down. I ended up in San Francisco because I know the city more than I knew any of the other counties. And I think I did an interview for Alameda, but I didn't really like the way their interviewers sounded more like interrogators instead of people trying to find out was I capable of doing the job. So I ended up in San Francisco in 1996.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
Well, before I went to the county, I actually got a job because I was a school secretary before I went to the city. So as I was getting my master's, I still worked at the school part time.
Hmm.
And so when they called me, it was summer. I was working summer school, and I had to decide: am I going to take a chance and use my degree?
Hmm.
So I ended up leaving the city and working for a foster family agency called Alternative Family Services,
Hmm.
which I really loved working there. They just didn't pay as much as I needed coming straight out of graduate school. But it was a great agency that not only placed children into their certified homes, but also had people shadow the children. And then as a worker, I had to see those children twice a month, sometimes more.
Okay. And so, what was
Okay.
your degree in?
My degree was a master's in social work services, and my emphasis was on personal services.
Okay. And so, what roles have you filled in the Department of Human Services?
In the department, I have been a child welfare worker. I have been the only African American specialist who actually worked that particular job because we had about 35 people go through the training. And that was so that we could quit, getting things wrong when it came to different nationalities, African Americans, Latinos. Sometimes people don't understand your culture, so they will place you and give you more rigid things that you have to do to get your children back.
Hmm.
And so when anytime a kid comes in, someone who writes that emergency report, they give you like what's wrong with the children and the things that the parent needs to do to get them back, whether it be anger management, or it could be you have to do some parenting classes, or it could be you have to do substance abuse, you know, classes in addition to having, them do your blood test or either a P test or whatever they have to do, depending on what the parent is going through. It would matter, if they think that you're on drugs, then they would have to prove you're on drugs. So whatever those tenets are that the court would say, you have to do this in order to get your child back.
Okay. And then, were there any other roles that you filled while in your time there?
Yes, yes, I was a foster parent recruiter in a licensed homes for 11 years. And that was really fulfilling because in that I was able to meet a lot of people who help foster children. I got to meet Father Clemens, who is the first African American priest to adopt children. And in addition to that, I got to meet Lou Gossett, who played Father Clemens, because I was able to go to Father Clemens's 50th Jubilee. And there, Lou Gossett told why he ended up being an adopted parent as well, because he said after playing that role, it made him feel like he could do more. And so it's awesome when you meet real people who are sometimes excuse me, I think I said something about being portrayed. So
Okay.
anyway, Lou Gossett, after he portrayed Father Clemens, he said that was made him adopt his son Malcolm, and I can't remember his second son's name, but I was able to meet them. And in addition, I was able to meet Antoine Fisher before his movie even came out. And the abuse that he talked about was way worse than that was in the movie portrayed. And so I'm thankful because, even though I lived in a community, I didn't know a lot of children were being abused or whatever. But now I know, like, if I see something, say something or at least do something.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so, how did you approach your work in the Department of in the DPH?
I want to say I approached it very humbly, knowing that it could have been me, and I also, approached it like I'm not the boss of these people. I have been put here to try to help them navigate this system. And also in terms of parents who really want to get their children back, it's my job to help them to make it as easy as possible, to not give someone 20 requirements to fulfill, because I can't, if you put 20 more things on my plate, I can't fulfill that. But if you give me 10 real solid things that are the basis for my children being removed, I could do that and I could get my child back. And
Mhm.
so that's how I approached it. And also dealing with foster parents. You have the foster parents you like to clone, the ones who do a lot of things, good things. Then you have the ones who are doing the bare minimum. And we know who you are. You know what I'm saying? We don't, you can pretend if you want to. We can tell the ones who are genuine in their gift for loving children, and then some who just doing it because they want some extra money, which it really isn't extra money. But anyway, we
Yeah.
see you and we know who you are.
Okay. And so, what is one of your most memorable experiences during your time as a social worker?
Okay, I have several, but I'm gonna go with my favorite story. It's a case of two twin boys who were in a foster home from the time they were 2 years old to the time they were 9 to the time I got the case. And this is when I wasn't being demoted. It was that the county monies had shortened, so I had to leave from being a foster care licensed recruiter to being a caseworker again. Well, these kids were placed right on my case, and I got the cases in July. Now, the first time I went, I already knew something was wrong because my boss had told me that the lady was refusing services for people to come in and work with the boys. And
Hmm.
the boys were using the bathroom on themselves at 9.
Hmm.
But the boys were brilliant in terms of their IQ. So when I went the first time, I called the foster parent and said, I'm on my way to see the boys. I'm a new social worker to this case. And when I got there, I was leaving from Bayview to Daly City. She was driving off with 4 or 5 kids in a van. And right then in my gut, I said, something's wrong.
Hmm.
So when she came back, because I was in the county car, she was like, I thought you wasn't coming. And I was like, I called you 15 minutes ago. So anyway, we went in. I had a very short visit with her, which really wasn't enough time for me to assess everything.
Hmm.
But since we had social workers going in and out of that house for the 7 years before I got to this case, I didn't think it was real bad. So the second visit, because when at that time when kids were in placement, we only had to go out every 60 days.
Hmm.
So I didn't have to go once a month like now you have to go once a month.
Hmm.
But anyway, I called the boys to see them at the Boys and Girls Club because that's where they supposedly be on whatever day. I think it was a Thursday. Well, I went to the boys club and the boys weren't there. So I drive straight to the foster parents' home, which I can do. But when I knocked on the door, she was like, hello? And I was like, oh, yeah, Sharon Webster. And she was like, this is unusual without opening the door. She's like, this is unusual. And I said, well, if you've been a foster parent for 30 years, I can come to your house whenever I want. And then she, hesitated opening the door and letting me in. So when I go into the house, I just tell her, she was just like, oh, acting like it was so unusual. And I was like, if you're a seasoned foster parent, you should know I can come whenever I want.
Mhm.
And that bothered my gut. And I was talking to her and I said, well, let me see the boys' room. And she was like, oh, you cannot see the boys' room. There's a teacher in there. And I said, well, you know that I have authority over a teacher. I'm mandated to know what's going on with them. But because the kids was looking in my mouth, I did not say what I wanted to say.
Mhm.
So when I got in the car, I called my boss and I told him what happened. And I told him I was very upset about it. And, when I got back to the office, I called her and I told her whenever I asked to see the kid's room, I expect to see it. And then she was like, I don't like the way you're talking to me. I'm going to call your boss, whatever. So she called him. But it's a good thing that I did not, blow up in front of the children or say something that the kids would keep in their head. To make a long story short, the next month they had an adoption fair, and we made sure that the boys got to that adoption fair. And so once I got those boys there, there were three or four families interested in them, but one especially.
Mhm.
And so, mind you, I've only been on this case 2.5 months. By September, this family is interested in adopting these boys. So when I tell the foster parent, she's like, I'm shocked. I thought they weren't going to get adopted. I said, well, we always look for permanency. Permanency meaning that we want the children to be adopted or we want someone to become their legal guardian. Normally, relatives, that's what we normally ask them if they want to keep the children because you want to have some paper saying that this is your child.
Right.
So she really didn't like that. But anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole case because that would take up our whole interview. But to make a long story short, those children ended up moving in January of the year that I got the case in July. They went in January to do visitation with the adopted family. So we were just monitoring them for I think they did like a 2-week visit. And then we moved forward. Well, those children did get adopted, and they are now 21 as of July 15th. And I still keep in touch with their adoptive mom because we are just so glad the way that worked out
Yes.
because it looked like they were going to be trapped in this home. And then after that case closed down, come to find out those foster parents ended up losing their license because they had 5 cribs downstairs. They had a lot of stuff going on. And because the kids got out of that house and was able to go to therapy and tell what they knew, we were able to shut that house down.
Okay.
And so that's one of my favorite cases.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that the boys are thriving. That's
Yes.
awesome. Okay, I'm going to move us into our third set of questions. And the first one is, in your opinion, why is it important for people to support foster youth?
Well, first of all, I think it's important if you live in this world because they're going to grow up one day and they're going to be adults. And I believe that, if no one pours into them, then what kind of children will they end up being? Because if they're moved around, then they don't attach to people, they won't have attachments. So my thing is, it's important to support. If you can't support financially, then you could support as being a big sister or big brother. You could be a court appointed social worker. You could also sit on a foster care board. It
Mhm.
depends on where people want to help. I just want you to know there is a lot of help needed. I was looking at something on Tiffany Haddish the other night where she donated 100 suitcases to foster youth, and I was so happy to see that because oftentimes when my kids was changing places, they did have big garbage bags. They did not have a suitcase. It was rare when they had a backpack. They come from one place to another with a big garbage bag, and none of us would like to have our stuff moved around like that in
Mhm.
big garbage bags because what is that saying about what we think of those people who were taking their stuff in these big garbage bags?
Mhm.
So even in that, you can create something for foster youth. They have the independent living skill program where you could help people before they exit out of the foster care system. And so there's so many different ways you could really help. If you're a relative, you could just be there if you know that this kid is teeter tottering on being placed in foster care. You could be there as a support to make sure they get their hair done once a month, or you do homework with them. So I'm just saying, all of these things you don't have to be live scam for, but if you're going to work with them like in a voluntary way, you would have to be cleared and live scanned. So I'm saying to those family members who know that their family members are teeter-tottering, if you could be there before the county steps in, that is the best way to come up with your own plan about how to keep this kid out of the system.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so how can the Department of Human Services improve on the services it provides?
I believe they could first gather more information because oftentimes, as caseworkers and we're working these cases, we see a lot of information is missing, whether it be for the paternal grandparents or any. Sometimes they just have nobody there but the mother and the father, and sometimes they don't even have the father's name because the mom may say, "I'm not sure." So I feel like first of all, we could gather the information. I think that they're trying to become more sensitive when they interview before they actually take a child out of the home because they have an assessment guide that shows them if a kid is at a high risk or a medium risk or a low risk. But sometimes I think that depending on who you going in there, you're not going to excuse everything, but you can excuse some things because what I found with my case is the kid might have been somewhere that was neglectful, but they may enter a foster home that's abusive. So just because we move a kid, sometimes the home we move them to is not safe, is not nurturing, and the people pretend to be kind, but they are not. That's not every case. I want to say there's more times that a foster parent is genuinely, good for the child and nurturing to the child. But those are the homes that stay full.
Yeah.
So it's just like we overwork the people who do the job well. And so then we have to place the other kids in mediocrity, in places that really are just basically letting them sleep and get their basic needs met.
Okay, thank you. And so, how can people who are interested apply to be foster parents?
People who are interested can also go to the county. They can go through the county or they can go to a foster family agency. If you want more support and more specialized training, I would say a foster family agency is better because they're going to support not only the kid but the person providing care because they don't want to burn you out. You know what I'm saying? They're going to provide respite so you can have a break.
Mhm.
And they're going to help navigate. When you have an emergency, they're going to come quicker than the county because they have less cases. So I think that a foster family agency is a great way. If you just want the county, go through the county because they only do it once or twice a year. You
Mhm.
could also do that. And now I think they may have, allocated for other foster family people to do it. I don't know if the county is doing their own licensing now because I haven't been there in a while.
Mhm.
But either way, the county will have a way to tell you how to get licensed through the county. And then the foster family agencies, you could Google foster family agencies. I'm like Aspira. Um, I can't think of it. Alternative Family Services. And I can't think of the other one they used to have in San Francisco, Sojourner Truth, because a lot of them have been disbanded.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll move us into our final set of questions. And so I would love for you to share anything you're doing to help others.
Okay. Well, let me turn it around. I voluntarily do things since I retired. So I have people call me all the time about a kid, one of their relatives who may have come into placement, and then what should they do, and people who may be getting ready to get a relative placed in their home. I always tell them put your medicines up, make sure you don't have any bleach or detergent on the floor where the kid can get it, and make sure if you have any firearms they have to be locked with the bullets stored separately because that's what they're going to tell you when they come to your house, that you have to have all of your plugs child-proof with the little things in it, so the little child-proof plug things so that the child doesn't hurt themselves. And then again, like no medication, no alcohol, where a kid could just pick it up, that has to be locked.
Mhm.
And also just making sure you have room for a child. They're going to want to walk through your entire house, so have it neat and tidy and have it, child friendly, so it would be inviting to a kid who may have to come live in the home with you.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. And so, have you taken any action to advocate for foster care youth?
Well, I would say I have in the past, not recently, but what, I want to take that back. I just came from Reno with a group of people, and we heard a baby crying for over 45 minutes in a room next door, and we had to make a call. Like, are we? Because two of us were ex social workers, so we were like, the baby been crying too long, so we called security. Um, the way it panned out, I feel like I should have called security and child protective services because they might just give them a pat on the wrist, but we didn't just let it go because we're not mandated reporters. Because like I told the lady, if you're a mandated reporter in your heart, call, what I'm saying, make the call, because we don't want anybody to get hurt while we're on this trip, and we don't want anybody to leave their kid in a room by themselves for 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
So we made the call. So in that sense, yes, I'm still doing things because I'm a mandated reporter in my heart.
Okay. Thank you. And so, have you made any effort to counteract oppression? And that's in any, not just foster care, but any other areas of your life too.
Well, I would think when I'm talking to people in need, like I have a friend who's disabled, who's not qualifying for Social Security disability, and she's feeling like nobody's listening to her. So when she calls me, I just try to give her like things to do so that she can stand up for herself
Mhm.
and not be a victim.
Mhm.
And then I told her to keep her a little documentation journal where she can document when she's dealing with the certain people, because she does have some physical issues that, I mean, she's only getting older. Those issues may never be taken care of if she doesn't get the Social Security disability.
Okay. It seems like you're really busy in retirement. You're enjoying yourself, but you're also busy still advocating for the needs of
Yes.
others. Yeah. So I would just like to lift up a couple of the pearls I heard you say. And you said a lot, and I think the viewers will definitely have some critical sense making with a lot of what you said. But I definitely hear you saying that our foster care youth really need a village, and that
Mhm.
we could be that village in a myriad of ways. That could be big brothers and sisters becoming foster parents, providing economic support, as well as working with them in different areas, which I thought was really good, especially about listening to you talk about the twins and how they
Yes.
were able to thrive. So really helping foster you feel connected to a village. And it doesn't have to always be family. Sometimes those connections, you know, they they dissipate. But I think creating a new family for them, creating new connections for them is always good. And then also when thinking about those who work with families who may be on the brink of losing their children, finding out more information so that we can be sensitive to the needs of the children. I remember
Yes.
one of my best friend's cousin. She was a baby
Mhm.
and she got placed in foster care. And what happened there, the abuse that she endured there was worse than the neglect that had happened in her home.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I'm glad that you lifted that up because sometimes
Yeah.
many of our parents may be on drugs. I call it medicating, right? Because
Yes.
they have childhoods that
Yes.
they're trying to heal from. And so I think just taking the time to get to understand what the family is going through, the dynamics, what led them to this point, and so maybe pointing them to other resources that could correct the issue before we just disband the family. So I really
Right.
appreciate you coming and sharing your truth, sharing a little bit of your journey, especially in the foster care work that you've done. And I commend you on all the years of service that you provided in San Francisco to the foster care youth that were in that system. And so, if there's
Yes.
one last piece of advice or any tips that you would like to leave with our viewers, your voice is the last voice they will hear.
Okay, one thing I want to say, we've all experienced times where we know we've seen somebody being abused, whether it was verbally, like my dog about to get abused. Let me see. No, verbally, whether we seen it verbally or physically, and we didn't know if we should step in. Um, if it ever comes to that, I mean, you have to listen to your gut. because we are living in a different times where people are very angry
Mhm.
and you really can't speak to people. But if you see something, you could always call the hotline and just tell them what you saw. You think the kid is around this age, the mother is hitting the child, because you won't have their name and number
Mhm.
unless you know them.
Mhm.
And I know some people like don't snitch. You need to snitch because that child is gonna be the same one who get older and hit somebody upside the head when they get older. That's why I'm saying we can't be afraid to tell somebody to stop that. Most kids who have a conscience respect that. Okay, you have the other ones who tell you to shut the f up. You don't say nothing to me. But those are the ones who have the harder parents who probably that's how they talk to their children. But most kids have a conscience, and if you tell them stop doing something, I believe they still will. But I just want to say you can't be afraid of them because if you're afraid, especially like a kid, if you're afraid of that kid, then they already got you beat.
Mhm.
And so, in doing that work, I couldn't walk around like I'm scared of these kids, because I had to help them and I had to talk to them like I was their parent. And I did talk to them like I was their parent because I knew that their parent couldn't do a better job, but they wouldn't want their children just acting any kind of way.
Mhm. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.